Picture this. It is 6 o'clock on a Monday morning. Your alarm goes off, you get dressed, grab your coffee, and walk outside, already thinking about the day ahead. But when you look toward the driveway, something is wrong. Your car is gone. It was not stolen. A family member did not borrow it. Sometime during the night, a tow truck quietly pulled up, connected to your vehicle, and drove away with it. The lender took it back. For a growing number of Americans, this is the moment when months of financial pressure finally become impossible to ignore. Behind every repossessed vehicle is a different story. Maybe someone's rent increased. Maybe their insurance premium jumped. Maybe they lost overtime hours, faced an unexpected medical bill, or watched groceries, utilities, and credit card payments consume more of every paycheck. The car payment once seemed manageable. Then, little by little, it became the bill they could no longer afford. Americans entered 2026 carrying roughly $1.69 trillion in auto loan debt. The average payment on a newly financed vehicle was about $770 a month, while the average used vehicle payment was approximately $531. And although auto loan delinquency did not suddenly explode in the first quarter of 2026, it remained elevated, a warning that many households were still under serious pressure. So why are Americans falling behind? The easy answer would be to blame reckless buyers who purchased cars they could never afford. But the real story is more complicated. It begins more than a century ago, when the automobile industry introduced an idea that seemed almost revolutionary. Take the car home today, pay for it later. At the beginning of the 20th century, automobiles were not parked in nearly every driveway. They were rare, unreliable, and expensive machines built largely for wealthy customers. Most Americans traveled by foot, horse, streetcar, or train. And if you wanted a car, you generally needed cash. There were no 7-year loans, no instant online approvals, no dealership advertisements promising zero money down. If you could not pay the full price, you probably did not get the car. Banks were cautious because automobiles looked like poor collateral. They wore out, they broke down, and they lost value quickly. Then Henry Ford changed the equation. In 1908, Ford introduced the Model T with the ambition of making automobile ownership possible for ordinary workers. The moving assembly line dramatically reduced production time and lowered costs. As Ford's factories became more efficient, millions of Model Ts moved onto American roads. But mass production created a new problem. Factories could build cars faster than many families could save enough money to buy them. People wanted automobiles. Increasingly, they could see how useful those automobiles would be. A car could expand where someone worked, shopped, or lived. But desire was not the same as cash. General Motors saw an opportunity. In 1919, it created the General Motors Acceptance Corporation, better known as GMAC. The company helped dealers finance their inventory and made installment financing more widely available to car buyers. The idea was simple. A customer could make a down payment, take the car home, and pay the remaining balance over time. That sounds ordinary today. At the time, it challenged a much older financial philosophy: save first, buy later. Henry Ford strongly disliked consumer debt. Ford later offered a weekly purchase plan that allowed customers to deposit small amounts regularly, but they generally did not receive the vehicle until they had accumulated the full purchase price. General Motors offered something more emotionally powerful: do not wait, drive now. Customers overwhelmingly preferred immediate possession. GM's financing strategy gave it a major competitive advantage, and installment credit began transforming the American economy. GMAC didn't invent debt, but it helped make debt feel normal. The change was larger than the automobile industry. Before installment credit became common, the central question was straightforward: how much does it cost? Financing introduced a different question: how much is the monthly payment? That subtle shift changed how Americans evaluated affordability. A $40,000 vehicle sounds expensive, but divide the cost across several years and describe it as $650 or $700 a month, and the purchase can feel far more manageable. The price has not disappeared. It has simply been divided into smaller pieces. That's the psychological power of installment credit. It changes the question from, "Can I afford this product?" to, "Can I fit this payment into my budget?" Soon, manufacturers and retailers applied the same model to refrigerators, radios, washing machines, furniture, and other large purchases. Consumer credit raised living standards, supported manufacturing, and gave middle-income families access to products they might otherwise have spent years saving to buy. Eventually, revolving credit and credit cards made borrowing even easier. But an auto loan has always carried a special risk. A car is expensive, yet it usually begins losing value almost immediately. A home may appreciate over time. A vehicle generally does the opposite. Every year and every mile reduce its value. As long as borrowers make their payments, the system works. But if a borrower owes more than the vehicle is worth, the loan can become a trap. Imagine buying an SUV and financing it for 7 years. 3 years later, the SUV may be worth $25,000, but you might still owe $31,000. You are now $6,000 upside down. If you keep the vehicle and continue making payments, that may not immediately matter. But if the car is totaled, becomes unreliable, or needs to be traded, the problem suddenly becomes real. A dealer may offer to roll that unpaid $6,000 into the next loan. Now, a $40,000 vehicle becomes a $46,000 loan, before taxes, fees, and interest. The old debt did not disappear. It followed the borrower into the next car. For years, relatively low rates and manageable vehicle prices helped keep this system moving. Then the pandemic arrived. In 2020, factories closed or slowed production, shipping networks were disrupted, and a global shortage of semiconductor chips prevented automakers from completing enough vehicles. Dealer inventories collapsed. But Americans did not stop needing transportation. People still had to work, take children to school, buy groceries, and care for family members. Buyers who could not find new cars moved into the used car market. Too many buyers were chasing too few vehicles. Prices surged. Used cars that had already been driven for years sometimes sold for prices that would have seemed unbelievable before the pandemic. Many buyers could not simply walk away. In much of the United States, a car is not a luxury. It is part of the basic infrastructure of life. So consumers relied on the strategy the industry had encouraged for generations: focus on the monthly payment. If the price was too high, stretch the loan over more years. If the down payment was difficult, put less money down. For a while, low interest rates made that strategy possible. Then inflation spread across the economy, and the Federal Reserve raised rates. By the first quarter of 2026, the average interest rate was about 6.39% on new car loans and 11.43% on used car loans. Borrowers with weaker credit could face rates much higher than those averages. This created a painful reality. A used car might have a lower sticker price, but its higher interest rate could still make the financing extremely expensive. At the same time, vehicle prices remained near historic highs. In June 2026, the average new vehicle sold for nearly $50,000, and the loan payment was only the beginning. Owners also had to pay for insurance, fuel, registration, tires, maintenance, and repairs. Those expenses competed with higher rent, groceries, utilities, medical bills, student loans, and credit card balances. A payment may appear affordable on the day a contract is signed, but an auto loan can last 6, 7, or even 8 years. During that time, a borrower may lose a job, rent may rise, a child may be born, overtime may disappear, or the vehicle may need a major repair. The lender can evaluate whether the payment fits the borrower's finances today. No lender can guarantee what that person's life will look like 7 years later. This problem is often hidden during the dealership negotiation. Many customers arrive with one number in mind, the maximum payment they believe they can afford. A salesperson can lower that payment by increasing the loan term, accepting a smaller down payment, or rolling other costs into the financing. The buyer may leave feeling that they negotiated an affordable deal, but they may have agreed to pay far more interest, remain in debt longer, and spend years owing more than the vehicle is worth. Longer terms are becoming one of the clearest signs of this affordability problem. In the first quarter of 2026, more than 35% of new vehicle loans and more than 31% of used vehicle loans extended beyond 6 years. A longer loan lowers the monthly payment, but it does not make the car cheaper. It simply pushes part of the cost further into the future and keeps the borrower at risk of negative equity for longer. This is why many Americans are falling behind now. It is not one problem, it is several problems stacked together. Cars became more expensive, interest rates increased, loans became longer, insurance and repairs cost more, and household budgets lost their margin for error. A family with substantial savings may absorb a $1,500 repair. A family living paycheck to paycheck may not. Lower income and subprime borrowers often feel the pressure first because they typically have smaller emergency cushions and may be charged much higher interest rates. That does not mean every subprime borrower is irresponsible. It means the financial consequences of one unexpected expense can be much more severe. For a financially vulnerable borrower, the crisis may require only one missed shift, one medical bill, or one insurance increase. One payment is missed, then another. Late fees are added. Phone calls begin. The borrower promises to catch up next month, but next month arrives with another rent payment, another grocery bill, and another difficult decision. Eventually, the monthly payment that made the car possible becomes the reason the borrower loses it. Many people assume repossession happens only after months of warnings and one final dramatic confrontation. In reality, the process may be surprisingly quiet. Repossession laws vary by state and contract, but in many states, once a borrower defaults, a lender may take the vehicle without advance notice, provided the repossession does not involve force, threats, or any other breach of the peace. A tow truck may arrive while the borrower is asleep, working, or shopping. Within minutes, the vehicle is gone. For the lender, the car is collateral. For the borrower, it may be the ride to work, the school drop-off, and the connection to everyday life. Losing transportation can make the original financial problem worse. Someone loses the vehicle because they can't make the payments and then becomes less able to earn the money needed to recover. But repossession usually does not erase the debt. After taking the vehicle, the lender generally sells it, often at auction. Suppose the borrower still owes $30,000. The vehicle sells for $22,000. That leaves an $8,000 shortfall. Towing, storage, and sale expenses may be added as well. The borrower has lost the car but may still owe thousands of dollars. This is known as a deficiency balance. In most states, a lender that followed the proper repossession and sale procedures may attempt to collect it or sue for a deficiency judgment. So the borrower may face all three consequences at once: no vehicle, damaged credit, and debt on a car they can no longer drive. That can begin a destructive cycle. Because the repossession damaged the borrower's credit, the next auto loan may require a larger down payment and carry a much higher rate. The person who can least afford an expensive loan may now receive the most expensive loan. Whenever people hear the words rising debt and defaults, they think about the financial crisis of 2008. So, are auto loans the next housing bubble? Probably not. The mortgage market is far larger. Homes behave differently as assets, and the 2008 crisis was deeply connected to complex securities and the stability of the banking system. Auto debt can cause serious pain without bringing down Wall Street. That distinction matters. The first quarter of 2026 did not show auto delinquency suddenly accelerating, but total household debt reached $18.8 trillion. Auto balances rose to $1.69 trillion, and auto loan delinquency remained elevated. That makes auto loans less like the center of an imminent banking collapse and more like a warning light on the dashboard of the American consumer. People usually fight to keep paying for the car they need to reach work. When they finally fall behind, the financial pressure may have started months earlier. They may already have drained their savings, increased their credit card balances, delayed medical care, reduced grocery spending, or fallen behind on other obligations. The missed car payment may not be the beginning of the problem. It may be the moment the problem becomes visible. The real crisis is not simply that Americans borrowed money to buy cars. Credit helped millions of families gain mobility, find better jobs, and build more convenient lives. The crisis is that the margin for error has disappeared. A nearly $45,000 vehicle, a payment approaching $800, a loan lasting 7 years, expensive insurance, rising repair costs, and a household budget already stretched by housing, food, healthcare, and other debt. More than a century ago, auto financing solved a major problem. It allowed ordinary Americans to use a car before they had saved its full price. But over time, the industry shifted from making cars affordable to making the monthly payment appear affordable. Those are not the same thing. The lesson is not that all debt is bad. Debt is a tool. It can help someone reach a better job, operate a business, or obtain reliable transportation. But when the price is too high, the term is too long, and the household has no emergency cushion, that tool can become a trap. And that is why Americans are falling behind on car payments. This is not only a story about automobiles, it is a story about affordability, about a nation built around driving, about the difference between owning something and merely being able to make the next payment, and about what happens when millions of families discover that the freedom promised by the automobile comes with a monthly bill they can no longer afford. If you enjoyed this deeper look at the history and economics behind America's auto debt problem, consider subscribing. On this channel, we do not just follow financial headlines, we explain how we got here and what those headlines mean for your money. Thanks for watching.